Spirit Academy is about the freedom to be fully yourself, beyond any trauma that may have been accumulated through our families, religions, education systems, cultural conditioning, and beyond. Our bodies hold our trauma, but they also hold our truth. My name is Randy Moss. I practice eating psychology coaching and somatic experiencing, and I'm grateful that you're here for these talks and conversations. Healing doesn't happen in a hurry. In the years that I struggled with binge eating, I can't tell you how many quote, last binges that I had. And I think perhaps every binge was a last binge in that every time I would tell myself, this is it. I'm never going to do this again, and I better get it in now because this is never happening again. And if I never get to eat these foods again, I better eat as many of them as I can now. And if I'm never going to lose myself like this again, I might as well really go for it because tomorrow was going to be perfect. That perfect fresh start that transformed my life. And if it wasn't telling myself that this would be the last, something else would create urgency. So if I had a wedding to go to or a school event or vacation or reunion, something where in all honesty, I wanted to enjoy it and be myself at it. That thing would become the threat, or just what I was calling my motivation. There were all of these magical moments that I promised myself I would get it together by. And by get it together, I mean that I would stop binge eating and transform myself and finally be relaxed enough to be my true self in the world. Or, the sort of idealized version of myself that I thought that my true self was or that I was going to be. It was a lot of pressure. And pressure is never going to support a process like this because there are always going to be layers to healing. While the panicked part of me could only see the simplest possible explanation, just that I lacked willpower and I needed to get it together, the reality was so much more complex. If I had been able to just stop, I would have missed meeting the part of me who felt unlovable in this body and unlovable if she had eaten too much, whether that was a bite too much or many, many, many bites too much. One of these layers was making it safe enough for myself to be in the body that I was in and to stop trying to fix it and to stop trying changing it, stop trying and change it, and to relax and explore what it felt like on the other side of a binge. So rather than fighting the binge eating to get to the end, and rather than immediately distracting myself with plans of how tomorrow was going to be so perfect, to actually feel it and to be like, okay, like that happened, not in an apathetic way, not in a, oh, whatever that happened way, but in a like, all right, that happened. What does this feel like? What does my belly feel like? What does my head feel like? What is my overall experience right now if I'm not distracting myself from it? If I had been able to just stop, I would have missed meeting the part of myself who was moving a million miles an hour and afraid to slow down and feel what was happening. There was a period of learning to slow down within a binge and actually taste the food and sit down and really feel what taking that food into my body did to my experience, did to shift my experience. If I had been able to just stop, I would have missed meeting the part of myself who had learned to check out of discomfort in the first place. There was this period of learning to feel what a binge urge felt like in my body and to slow down enough to feel this survival energy coursing through myself that was driving me towards this thing, and to slowly start showing myself that I wouldn't die if I didn't do it. If I had been able to just stop, I would have starved myself. So much of the binge eating was amped up in urgency because of the limited way that I was feeding myself. It was this counterbalance to the undereating, which I sincerely did not believe I was doing. Here, I would have missed meeting the part of myself who learned she was only okay if she was constantly trying to make her body and health meet a certain standard. This part that reached for what she saw as perfection, and the part that tried to control this particular area as a way of feeling in control when so much of life up until that point had felt out of control. If I'd been able to just stop, I wouldn't have learned to truly listen to my body. Listening for what actually worked in terms of food and my hunger and fullness led to being able to feel other tucked away experiences like sadness or anger or anxiety. All of these symptoms or messages with their own whole worlds of layers to explore. So the hurry just never works. The hurry or urgency to be healed, integrated, enlightened, free, arrived, done. It's not as neat and tidy as a lot of the self-help books or influencers or before and after photos might suggest. It tends to be more like the harder we try to fix things, the harder our nervous system works to keep us where things are familiar. Whereas if we can slow down with ourselves right in the thing that we hate the most, or with the behavior that we hate the most, or the part of ourselves that we hate or struggle with the most, we can get to know it. And there are often so many unknown steps in a healing process that we couldn't possibly plan them all out, let alone by a certain date. And often, it's the version of us that exists right here that is the one most needing our acceptance and attention. I hope you enjoyed this episode. For more updates on courses, classes, one-on-one mentorships, and more, go to randymoss.com, RANDEMOSS.com. And thank you so much for listening.